I'm a strong believer that the isolation burden on Eritrea is not going to work any longer. Ladies and gentlemen, Eritrea has freed itself from the isolation, the verdict of the unfair justice system of the West. Eventually, it has survived. Is Eritrea isolated anymore? I don't think so. I have a nice video to this effect, and check this out. It's beautiful. It tells us the current situation of the country vis-a-vis geopolitical conflict going on to have control of the Red Sea some kind of way by all powers of the world.
The Eritrean coastline, a stark ribbon along the Red Sea, has seen empires rise and fall, and a nation forged in the fires of one of Africa's longest wars. For decades, Eritrea was synonymous with isolation, sealed off by its own design and international sanctions. But as 2025 ends, the narrative is shifting. Eritrea is no longer silent. It's making itself heard. Asmara, with its unique architecture, is now a discrete hub for high-stakes diplomacy, drawing leaders from across Africa and the Middle East. Eritrea is re-emerging, not as a penitent, but as a confident, assertive player dictating its own terms. The country is leveraging its strategic shoreline, playing rival powers against each other with skill honed by years of existential threats. Understanding this shift means looking beyond headlines into a national psyche that values sovereignty above.
I think it's the culture of self-reliance during the struggle era where the West and the East had contrary arguments over the Eritrean independence. Eritreans had to do it by themselves, by self-reliance. The West is not there, and then the East is not there. At that time, I'm talking about. They were not there. So Eritreans had to do it by their own creativity, skills, unity, and determination. And then 34 years after their independence, now we see that independence, mind-wise, I'm talking about self-reliance mentality, producing results. Now, Eritrea is capable of using its geography for its benefits. Ladies and gentlemen, 2026, we're going to see some kind of miracle in Eritrea. I do believe so. It's going to be the start of departure to the modern civilized world.
Eritrea isn't just rejoining the world. It's trying to reshape its corner of it. This is the story of Eritrea's audacious bid to turn decades of isolation into a new era of influence. Eritrea's identity was seized through a 30-year war of independence against Ethiopia, a conflict marked by sacrifice and isolation. The world largely ignored Eritrea's struggle, teaching its leaders that self-reliance was the only guarantee of survival. Independence in 1993 brought hope, but a border war with Ethiopia in 1998 shattered optimism and entrenched a siege mentality. This justified a vast conscripted army and indefinite national service, fueling a refugee exodus.
Well, a lot of people argue that the forced conscription, or whatever they call it, is only for fighting. Eritrea has no choice. What else could it do? 5 million people, very poor society, fighting over 130, you know what I'm saying, like anarchic government down there that doesn't believe in justice and in the rules of the law. Therefore, Eritrea has to defend itself by its own keys. What Eritrea did though is converting the situation into its advantage. Our kids are now educated. Kind of. They're working hard. They're involved in nation building. Eritrea brought gold out of the suffering caused by Ethiopians. That's all I'm saying. Therefore, we're now harvesting the benefits of self-defense, self-reliance, united society, extremely peaceful. think throughout Africa. Eritrea is now at the stage where it can go beyond the Ethiopian rhetoric, the Ethiopian aggression, the Ethiopian threat into fast development. Okay, this is all I think about. The time has come for Eritrea to advance its resources into producing results inside the country in terms of jobs, in terms of security, in terms of wealth, in terms of higher education. Eritrea is now ready to go for war, thanks to the brilliant leadership in Asmara.
In 2009, over alleged support for militants, deepened Eritrea's isolation. The government tightened its grip, convinced the world, especially Ethiopia, sought to undermine its sovereignty. Yet this period was not idle. Eritrea's leaders observed, learned, and waited, consolidating power and militarizing society. Isolation became a strategic retreat, allowing Eritrea to develop a foreign policy unburdened by international approval. This groundwork set the stage for Eritrea's bold diplomatic pivot. Hardship became the platform for calculated ambition. In early 2025, Eritrea withdrew from the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, EGAD, a move that surprised many.
Well, I don't think it was surprising. Nobody can respect it. It didn't respect itself. We cannot respect IGAD more than it can respect itself. It became the stooge, Abiy's stooge, to do his dominance in East Africa, his wild expansion theory that doesn't work. Okay? So IGAD is not good for us any longer. Isaias knows this. President Isaias understood this. He used to be a member a long time ago. He withdrew when IGAD became a private enterprise. And now he came back a few years ago. He turned back to be the same thing. So he had no business in there. I think he assertively communicated the independent nature of Eritrea, and it was a good move in my opinion.
Far from retreating, Eritrea was declaring its intent to engage the region on its own terms, free from what it saw as Ethiopian dominance. The government argued IGAD had failed, becoming a tool for external interests. By leaving, Eritrea signaled it would no longer be bound by a consensus it didn't shape. The message: if you want to discuss Red Sea security, come to Asmara. This forced neighbors and global powers to engage Eritrea directly, playing
regional integration was the agenda of Eritrea. And he played it very well. He supported Abiy government to come to power. Eritreans sacrificed their lives for that, and regional integration was about to flourish. Unfortunately, it didn't work because of Ethiopia's pulls against Eritreans, undermining the fact that Eritreans are few in number before they understand how they came to be this self-reliant by themselves. It's not only numbers, it's quality that counts, ladies and gentlemen. And the quality, the mentality has been already established in Eritrea.
Into its hands. The trilateral meeting with Somalia and Egypt in Asmara exemplified this new strategy. Eritrea is now creating its own coalitions, not waiting for invitations. The withdrawal marks the start of a more assertive diplomatic era. Eritrea's years in the diplomatic wilderness are over. Eritrea's foreign policy is shaped by a fortress mentality, cautious, militarized, and deeply skeptical of outsiders. Diplomacy and defense are inseparable, with every move assessed through the lens of national security. Eritrea uses proxy forces and asymmetric tactics to keep rivals off balance, extending influence without direct confrontation.
Unlike many countries, Eritrea never allowed other forces to have bases in the country. They say, that independence has given it the power right now to neutrally navigate its policies in the world geopolitical arena.
Alliances are pragmatic and transactional, not ideological. The deepening relationship with Egypt is driven by shared mistrust of Ethiopia's ambitions, especially over the Nile and Red Sea.
There was a common interest they couldn't have ignored. They had to do something against the bullism, and they did it very well.
Ties with Saudi Arabia focus on securing the Red Sea corridor, while relationships with the UAE and Israel have cooled as interests diverge. Eritrea's approach is fluid. Friends and enemies shift based on utility. Sovereignty and strategic interests always come first.
Absolutely. The sovereignty came as a result of a lot of sacrifice, and it has to be kept at any cost necessary. This is the Eritrean policy, and then we will develop the country slowly. Sovereignty comes first, because everybody is trying to just play games with us, especially the Ethiopians have not given up their colonial mentality. So sovereignty has become the first priority of the Eritrean people. Of course, food, lodging, security, and all that in place.
Eritrea's greatest asset is its geography. Over 1,100 kilometers of Red Sea coastline, including the vital ports of Massawa and Assab. Once seen as vulnerabilities, these ports are now powerful tools of diplomacy and leverage. Control over Massawa and Assab gives Eritrea a decisive say in Red Sea security, attracting interest from global and regional powers. The government fiercely guards these assets, rejecting any proposal that would give Ethiopia sovereign port access. Ports are not just economic infrastructure, they are the ultimate guarantors of sovereignty. Eritrea selectively engages partners for port-linked development, embedding itself in regional trade and security networks. The goal: make Eritrea's stability a vested interest for powerful nations. In this strategic game, cranes and docks are as important as armies. Eritrea's assertive diplomacy has shaken the Horn of Africa, creating new alliances and deepening old rivalries. The brief peace with Ethiopia has collapsed, replaced by a cold war over sea access and region.
At this point, there is no chance for the Ethiopian government to sit down with the Eritrean government because there is nothing to negotiate. We don't know what to talk about. What is there to negotiate? Nothing negotiated about it because the ports are ready for usage. Ethiopians, we know they have that right, and we know we cannot stop them, and we know we want it also, but not in this format. Ethiopia has waged war against us through the mouth, of course. If it was practical to do it, it would have done it. Therefore, Eritrea got nothing to do to talk to the Ethiopians at this point on government level of the connection. There has to be another government, another logical government to come through this difficulty and come over in Ethiopia and then to negotiate with Eritrea on everything, including the port access to the sea, which is very easily available based on the Eritrean theory of cooperation, based on the international law. We just hope Ethiopians will succeed to change their government and some civilized government comes that doesn't threaten Eritrea, because that is the requirement for business based on international laws.
Regional dominance. Eritrea, Egypt, and Somalia now form a loose bloc countering Ethiopian ambitions, while Ethiopia seeks new partners and port deals elsewhere. The region is split into competing camps, with Eritrea a key pole in the anti-Ethiopia coalition. Yet Eritrea's posture has also attracted Gulf states and global powers seeking security partners in the Red Sea. Its withdrawal from IGAD has paradoxically elevated its importance, forcing direct engagement. Eritrea has turned pariah status into pivotal power broker. Whether this leads to stability or conflict remains uncertain. Eritrea's strategic pivot is defined by a turn away from the West and towards emerging powers. Years of sanctions and suspicion soured relations with the US and Europe, prompting Eritrea to seek partners with fewer strings attached.
It had no choice. It had no choice. It had to go somewhere looking for survival. Any human being's instinct, ladies and gentlemen, any government's instinct, suffocating little Eritrea as such with sanctions was brutal and inhuman. But the United States of America, the West, the Europeans pushed it away, ignored its needs, pushed it away. Right now, the Eritreans didn't get pushed as easy because they chose to survive on their own instead of going and bending for the Easterners. You understand what I'm saying? Therefore, that neutrality, that independence, given external power right now, external power meaning in terms of relationships with the world, it's not isolated anymore. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful sacrifice. But this doesn't mean it's not going to make relationships with America. Of course it will. It just means that America has to cool down a little bit on its sanctions and try to understand the Eritrean phenomenology as much as possible. Therefore, a good bilateral relationship can be constructed in between. That's what I'm trying to do as an American from Eritrean origin.
Russia offers diplomatic cover and a shared skepticism of Western dominance, while China brings investment and infrastructure through the Belt and Road Initiative. Eritrea's ports are central to these new relationships, offering access and leverage. The country is also seeking BRICS membership, further integrating into non-Western economic and political systems. This realignment is a hedge against Western pressure and a bet on a multipolar future. Eritrea.
But the fact that Eritrea stayed just behind so far, it didn't apply. I don't think so. It didn't join the BRICS. I find it a good strategy not to aggravate the West. Okay? Not to aggravate the West. No matter what the West does to it, there is a lot of patience in this. There is a lot of spirituality that I look. There is a lot of, I'm telling you, the way I look at it, Eritrea has been so patient on America because other countries in the situation would have shifted and given their country some kind of basis, foreign basis in there, the Russians and the Chinese. Eritrea didn't do that. It didn't aggravate the Americans. I think the United States of America has to understand this benevolence, this beautiful approach, and change its views to make a good relationship with Eritrea 2026.
Eritrea is now a sovereign actor, choosing partners based on its own interests. This eastward pivot is the boldest aspect of its foreign policy shift. Once seen mainly as a source of remittances, now plays a vital role in shaping the nation's global image. Acting as unofficial ambassadors, they advocate for Eritrea, countering negative narratives and promoting self-reliance. This network is fiercely loyal, mobilizing support through cultural events and online campaigns. The diaspora also facilitates trade, investment, and diplomatic outreach, especially as Eritrea engages new markets in Asia and the Middle East. However, the relationship is complex. Asmara's reach extends deep, with mandatory taxes and efforts to control dissent. While opposition exists, the pro-government faction remains highly effective.
Well, actually, the opposition has died. It may exist in image. It doesn't exist any longer. It has killed itself. It has no policies. Okay, it has no written stuff. It has no unity. It's not organized as such. 26 years of failure, ladies and gentlemen, since 1999. All it had produced was the terrorists that throw stones. Therefore, the opposition has no place in Eritrea. The Eritreans have no attention to that one. They don't take up as alternative to the government in Eritrea, and they're all optimistic to make a relationship right now with the United States as candid as possible so that Eritreans can go to work, to change their country, and for Americans to secure their interests peacefully without the opposition groups. The opposition groups are West. They're West. Forget about bringing democracy in Eritrea. They have no say within the community in the diaspora. This has to be clear.
The diaspora's ability to...
Yet the Eritrean government has to change its policies to a certain extent in few areas, and that we will discuss it together next time.
Mobilize resources and support is a critical factor in Eritrea's resilience. They are both architects and amplifiers of Eritrea's influence abroad. As 2025 ends, Eritrea stands at a crossroads, no longer isolated, but a formidable regional player. Its strategy has reshaped alliances and drawn global attention, proving that small nations can wield outsized influence. Eritrea's model, leveraging geography, bypassing regional bodies, and courting new patrons, offers a controversial blueprint for sovereignty. Yet this path is fraught with risks: internal repression, regional tensions, and reliance on shifting alliances. The aggressive approach could escalate conflict, especially with Ethiopia, or leave Eritrea vulnerable if global dynamics change.
I think it's about time Ethiopia understands sovereignty is the key purpose that we Eritreans are dead and sacrificing for our country. Therefore, if Ethiopia understands this, hopefully the next government can make a simple adjustment into this, accept reality and deal with Eritreans directly without any other third mediator or something like that. We can deal with Ethiopia, and the ports are open for them to use. They just have to be abided by these laws. They got to respect Eritrea's sovereignty, and then next thing is just making a deal. Therefore, the future is bright. I do think so. I think the world has come to understand Eritrea's self-reliance policy, okay? Determination to stand by itself, and now the geography has become very important for Eritrea to maneuver its choices perfectly without, of course, with minimum risk, as perfect as possible. There is no perfection, but as brilliant as possible. They have managed it so far, and they will keep doing it. I hope 2026 will be a new year for Eritrea to start their renaissance in terms of roads, in terms of tourism, in terms of rebuilding Asmara, in terms of lots of things. So far, I believe they have secured food for themselves. Eritrea doesn't ask help for food. All it has to do now is exaggerate positively what it has done so far to maximize productivity, agricultural productivity in the country, and to feed its people, to make them more comfortable, to create jobs now, and do we Eritreans got to come out of the shadow of the sanctions, the shadow of war and threat from Ethiopia, into the light, into the brightness, so the whole world can accept us the way everybody is accepted. We are accepted. We are not isolated. Our ideology has worked. Although it was so difficult for Eritreans to survive, the people have managed to secure their peace, secure their unity. And this is very good for America, the most stable country, the most peaceful country in the region. Okay? We can work with that. The time of isolation for Eritrea has become history to my understanding, and I'll see you in the next show. Peace.